Welcome to Joe Stunner Boxing yet again. You know, if you'd said to me a couple of weeks ago that I'd be doing two videos concerning Rolly Romero in one day, I'd have been, why? But I gotta be honest, Rolly is, I wouldn't say he's become one of my favourite fighters, but whereas previously I'd sort of viewed him as being an also-ran, a guy who's, he tries his best. I don't think he's technically particularly good, but you know, he gives his all. But what comes out of his mouth, you know, for a guy who was considered to be a bit of a crazy cat, he's actually talking quite a bit of sense. I made a video earlier today about him saying that some fighters pay too much. And he said, well, he was raising that issue. He said he wants it to be more like UFC. I don't agree with that bit, but he beat, as you know, he beat Ryan Garcia, which was a massive win for him. He had two bad losses, two stoppage losses. He got beaten up and stopped by Isaac Cruz. I mean, he virtually stopped him. He almost stopped him in the first round. In fact, Rolly lasted into the later rounds, and took his beating well, but I don't know whether he won a round. And then he got stopped by Tank Davis, although he was winning. He was winning against Tank. That's an interesting thing. You know, Tank, we know, starts very slowly. Almost came a cropper in his last fight because he wasn't doing enough. But he got Rolly eventually out of there in, I think, the fifth round, wasn't it? But Rolly was interviewed and he said he put the mockers on that sort of Devin Haney Garcia rematch. I don't think anyone wants to see that anymore. And Garcia's performance against Rolly was pretty appalling. But of his own career and the two losses, Rolly said, look, I've got two losses. They both came in big fights, and those losses haven't derailed me from anything. They can't slow me down. Every time you think I'm gone, I'm going to come back again and again. Those other guys are fighting for money. I fight for belts and legacy. Interesting. So he's got the hunger, is what he's saying. And he was kind of written off, wasn't he, after the Isaac Cruz fight. They kind of wrote him off, whereas I think most people expected him to be to lose to Tank. The Cruz fight, where he was defending that WBA 140-pound belt that he had, which he scandalously won from the old-faced killer Barroso. That was a very suspect stoppage, very dreadful, really awful performance by Rolly as well. But he won the belt and then he lost it to Cruz. But talking about Garcia, he says, if Ryan wants to do a rematch, we can do it. I don't know if he's mentally ready for a rematch. And I know he has other obligations. I don't know if people are too interested in seeing that rematch. But if you have obligations, you should honour your obligations. He might have been talking about the Haney rematch. Maybe Ryan and Haney were supposed to be going to have their rematch, but does anyone want to see it? And Rolly said, well, you should honour your obligations, but do people really want to see Garcia Haney too? He also said, I know Ryan too well. I knew exactly how he was going to come out, where he was going to come. I think he was surprised that at how well I knew him. I neutralised his left hook. The second he threw one left hook, what happened? He got dropped and he never threw it again. The only reason he didn't get knocked out is because he was fighting to survive. I mean, all of that makes perfect sense. And coming out of Rolly's mouth, Rolly being someone who's been dismissed as having a low ring IQ and being not very insightful, it sounds to me like he's actually got his head screwed on right, at least when it comes to the ring. And, you know, he said when he was fighting at 135, he said, I really should have been at 140. And then when I was at 140, I really should have been at 147. He said he was calling out Errol Spence Jr. And he wanted to skip 140. He said I should have gone to 147 a long time ago. And I think it's apparent. How do I move up in weight and get a lot faster and more explosive? You usually get slower when you move up in weight. Well, I'm going to assume he's not taking things he shouldn't take, because that's one way of becoming faster and stronger the more you move up in weight. So I'm going to assume, there's no evidence to suggest Rolly's doing anything he shouldn't be doing, but He said, "You didn't really see me box earlier on in my career because I was flatlining people in the first few rounds. Jab to the body is the money punch for me. That punch will break anyone down little by little, and I've dropped people with it. Focusing on his boxing skills rather than his brute strength wrestling speed." Yeah, I mean, the article I'm reading, which is in Boxing News, if you don't check out Boxing News online, you're missing out, because it's very, very insightful. Does a lot of insightful pieces. It says that Romero has matured as a person, as we all do. Hopefully, we all do as we get older, and now he can focus more on his boxing skills now that he's at a more comfortable weight. And again, in theory, that makes sense. And ROLLY says, "Ryan gave me his best. He was that was a focused Ryan Garcia. He didn't do any of the stuff that he's done for his last fight, meaning all that, drinking and talking like a madman and all the rest of it." He said that was a focused Ryan Garcia. That's because Ryan takes me seriously. He knows me. Well, you can make the argument that Ryan is the type of fighter who likes chaos and who operates best on that sort of chaotic, nervous energy rather than having his head screwed on right. That is possible. There have been fighters like that in the past. Aaron Pryor is probably the best example I can think of. But ROLLY is he's done well. I mean, his career is pretty much reborn. I think he's 29 now. And the win over Garcia can be used as a springboard to bigger things, and he'll certainly get paid more. I mean, of all those fighters that were on that Times Square card, ROLLY and Tio Lopez were the only people who I thought deserved their money. Whatever they earn, I don't know what they earn, but I hope ROLLY does get more opportunities. And Tio versus ROLLY, I mean, that would be a bad fight, would it? How about ROLLY versus Conor Benn? There are options, aren't there? But I don't know. Let me know what you think about ROLLY. I kind of like the guy now. I'm warming to him, really warm to him. I never disliked him. I just thought he's kind of an also-ran. But this is good stuff. I like what he's saying. Of course, you've got to back it up. Talk's cheap, but I do like what's coming out of his mouth anyway. But let me know what you think. Give me your opinions. Leave them below. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be great, because you're supporting the channel, helping to build it up. And if you like the video, click the like button as well, because that helps us out also. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. As always, bye for now.